Let's be real when we talk about the future of work with AI. We usually focus on people sitting at desks all day. But what about the other 80% of workers? The 2.7 billion people who are out there building, fixing, serving, and making the world actually work? I'm Ryan Kohler, and this is the future of work with AI. Emily is talking with Jeremy Jacobs, serial entrepreneur and CEO of UnDesked, who's got a wild story about how he discovered this massive blind spot in workplace technology. Picture this. You're the executive vice president of a 50 billion company, and you literally have to crawl through bushes and bang on windows just to get into your own facility because there's no system in place. That's the reality Jeremy encountered, and it sparked him to build solutions for the invisible workforce that keeps our economy running. So here's the deal. Jeremy is going to challenge everything you think you know about implementing AI at work. We're diving into why you can't just slap artificial intelligence on top of broken workflows, how to bridge the generational tech gap, and his brilliant framework that breaks down all work into just a few simple elements. If you've ever wondered what the future looks like for workers who don't live in spreadsheets and Slack channels, this conversation is going to flip your perspective completely. This is wild stuff. Let's dive in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Future of Work with AI. I'm your host, Emily Alvarez, and I am here today with a very awesome and interesting guest, Jeremy Jacobs. He is all the way in Kentucky, and we are very excited to have you on the show. Recent speaker at SHRM Nationals, CEO and founder of UnDesked, helping out the deskless worker, which is something I'm very familiar with in my career. And so welcome to the show, Jeremy. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. We're really excited to have you.
Well, Emily, thanks for having me. And so big fan of any time I can talk about AI and its transition of workplaces and so forth. So yeah, a little bit about me, serial entrepreneur. I always make the joke I'm psychologically unemployable. I have been an entrepreneur since I've been an adult, primarily in the technology business. And what I really find interest in is identifying problems that a lot of people have or a need that a lot of people have and leveraging software and sometimes hardware, but usually software to fix those problems. It's just been a big passion of mine. And most recently, I've built several software companies, had several successful exits. But most recently, the last few years, we've really focused in on this deskless workforce. 80% of the global workforce, 2.7 billion people.
Yeah.
And we just identified a lot of very common problems that all of these deskless environments have. And nobody was there to help. Nobody was coming to save anybody. And so we examined those and been spending the last several years on building software to help deskless workers.
I love that. It's so cool that you have really taken a look at this because, like you said, 80% of the population in some way, shape, or form is a deskless worker. We're
Isn't that
not all.
mind-boggling?
It is when you think about it. We're on the move, right? And this is any industry. I mean, we're not just talking like skilled trade or you know, what we think about generally for people coming in and out of like homes or businesses. This could be really any industry. I know for me it was manufacturing.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to go to facilities, factories. I had to go to wash houses when I was doing denim, but I was always in the field. And it was very disconnecting, right? To be away because I would only come into the office maybe like once a day.
Mhm.
And that can be very challenging for a worker who is very vital to a team, but doesn't have a way to really serve themselves in certain things or serve the company except for a very small window.
Yep.
Right? So talk to me about how this came about. Like, how did you hone in on the deskless employee or deskless workforce besides the fact that it's 80% of people? Did something happen
Yeah,
that
great
you
question.
were
Yeah, and it wasn't an epiphany or anything. It was a series of events, which is normally how these things happen.
right?
So in 2008, I started a company called Iconic, and I invented the TV menu that you see in the restaurants. We built the first one that we're aware of anyway in the world, and Cisco Foods began to sell that product for me. And then the digital menu evolved into other types of digital signage and interactive kiosks, and a couple of those different applications that we made through the years was we started to focus in like manufacturing. I bumped into a guy and he said, "Hey, I've got some problems in manufacturing of safety awareness. Do you think you could use these TV screens and digital signage to get people to be safer?" And then
Yeah.
later, the same guy comes to me, and next thing you know, we're in like 100 and something facilities with digital signage. We made the place wildly safer. And then the next thing you know, he's like, "Hey, I got another problem. I go to these facilities that I'm the senior executive vice president of, and there's like a doorbell dinger in the lobby. No one ever comes to answer it. I need a way. You got to build me a system. So when I get there, I watch whatever safety videos and sign papers, and it like emails or calls or text or whatever it's going to do. And
Right.
somebody comes to get me because I had to crawl in the bushes the other day, bang on a window to get someone to come let me in. And I'm the senior
Right.
executive vice president of a $50 billion a year company. And so we built them an application for that. And, over time, a lot of new clients buying digital signage, buying visitor management, but they all started complaining about other problems.
Sure.
And and they were all saying, Emily, the exact same thing. They were all talking about how they've got these workers and how do we communicate with them? How do we get things from them? How do we give them access to resources? If they're out on the floor, how do they put a near miss in or a maintenance request? If they're in the break room, how do they put in a request for a shift swap or a day off or look up the policy manual or sign up for benefits or join the company softball team? How do we
Right.
do these things?
Right.
Because we don't have a way to do any of this. And this is what literally hundreds of facilities were saying. And as
Yeah.
we examined it, we realized it wasn't, like you said earlier, it's not just manufacturing, it's construction, it's utilities, it's hospitality, it's food service, it's retail, I could just keep going and going
Right.
and going, and it's everywhere.
Yeah. That's such an interesting and great story about the guy having to climb through the bushes
Yeah,
because I have seen that at other companies, not that exact scenario, but people that are fairly high up at companies that like can't get into their own building or
yeah.
can't get through to somebody they need to talk to, and it's urgent
Mhm.
because of these like outdated processes or outdated methods of communication.
What about just a lack of
Or
process?
lack of, yeah, or lack thereof. Exactly, yeah, that or lack thereof, yeah, to your
Yeah.
point,
It's
totally.
not outdated. We never made a process for this.
Right, right. There was never an SOP put in place for this simple thing in the first place,
Right.
which I think speaks greatly to company culture. Like, if we're not gonna put these things in place, we probably don't have a company culture built very strongly on, like, giving our employees resources to do their
Yeah.
jobs effectively,
You know,
which
you're
speaks to
not
your
the
product
you're
being
not the first person to say that, but to me, and I thought about that a lot, right? Like, do you have a culture that cares about the employees? It's to summarize where you're going with that. But there's another thing, like, even if you don't care about your employees and all you care about is money, there's a financial incentive.
oh, for sure,
Yeah, there's like
productivity.
there's a ton of reasons to care because you care about money, because you care about people. Documenting processes, looking at what, if I put in a near miss because I almost got hurt, it should trigger an automation that tells the
Yes,
safety person to investigate this. And if they
yes,
say, yes, this could have been avoided, it should trigger a maintenance person to go build a guard or put up a rail or whatever the thing is. And so this is not an abnormal thing. This is a
no,
normal thing. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all contingent, and documenting those workflows, automating those workflows, and being sure that people get communicated, whether it's through text, a kiosk, email, whatever that is, that they're alerted, hey, you need to do something.
yeah.
It doesn't exist until we show that.
Yeah, and that's I think is a very common issue in a lot of companies. They don't have maybe well, it could be a number of reasons, right? They could be siloed. You could
Mhm.
have departments not talking to each other, which I think is the number one thing, really, if I get down to it.
Not
I
only
saw
does the
that
department not talk to each other, the software of this
is
department,
not talking to each other. Yeah, the
software, they
tech
don't talk.
doesn't. Yeah, exactly. And I saw that a lot in manufacturing, right? Because I mean, you could have a pre-production team, well, designed a pre-production to production, and we were pretty good, but sometimes stuff gets lost, right? And you have to really kind of have an overarching view, or a high view. You're a helicopter pilot, so you have to have that high view point of looking down and being able to see the steps of the process in order to map that out. And when companies get siloed, or they have, like you said, departments that don't talk to each other, or the tech doesn't talk to each other, there's no bridge between, and sometimes they keep it that way intentionally. Um,
Yeah.
you can't really build a system that works like a assembly line in that regard. So it's inefficient in a lot of ways because there's
Well,
holes.
well, more to the ethos of, the podcast here, which is AI. If you don't have your workflows documented
Yes.
and you don't have everything digital, AI it might as well be an imaginary creature.
Right.
Because you're not going to AI a bunch of paper on a clipboard. And if you
Right.
don't know what one thing leads to the other, what are you gonna AI? And I love these people that's like, oh, we need to get AI involved. Well, you don't even know what you're doing yet, like
Right.
to determine where AI needs to even be implemented. And so,
Right.
step one is digitize, and step two is document the workflows. And then step three is to go, okay, what can be automated or analyzed through artificial intelligence? Where can we improve the problems? But you got to identify the problem first.
Well, and I would even say not even necessarily what can be automated, right? Because a lot of stuff can be automated. I would say what should be automated,
Yeah.
because I mean, that's where a lot of companies, I think, get hung up, is they're like, oh, we can automate all of this now. This is so cool. They're like magpies. It's like, let me just gravitate to the next shiniest object in the room, and I'm so excited about it. But they don't take the time to understand the tool and if it is even applicable to the person that has to use it every day.
Right.
And so that I was going to ask this to kind of like taper on the back of yours, like how much time did you actually spend with these workers before you developed this system of software? Because I would imagine you spent probably a lot of time with these people to sit
Well,
down and say, like, this is like, of your own experience, I'm sure, because you've lived it.
yeah,
But I would imagine that being you and I are unique, that we can sit down and actually speak to, like, we've lived this.
yeah, right, right.
So we
And
can,
so I think it was less about the time. It was a lot of time. I don't know how to quantify the time, but it was less about the time, and it was more, I said earlier it was a process of coming up with this idea, but there was an epiphany.
yeah,
And what it was, and I'll explain it, and it'll make perfect sense. So you're made up of chemical compounds, and everything in that room you're in is made up of chemical compounds. Well, those chemicals are all made up of raw elements, and those
right,
elements are on a periodic table of elements. So these elements make up everything you see. So I started to look at work. What is work? Well, work are these workflows, and sometimes it's fill out a form. And sometimes it's watch a video and then go through a checklist and then sign off on a thing. And sometimes it's more than that or less than that.
right,
But these workflows are literally nothing more than a series of what we call resources. It's fill out a form, take a test, look at a piece of media, sign an agreement or do an acknowledgement, get a notification, or maybe you need to be kicked out to an external link because maybe you need to go to Anthem's website to sign up for benefits. You can't do that on a standard form anywhere else. And so once we figured out these resources made up any work that I don't care if it's your kids cleaning their room or you
right,
signing up for college or building a candle in a factory. It's
right,
literally just a series of forms, checklists, agreements, media. It's a series of these resources. And then all those resources go one of two places. They either become assignments because someone imposes their will and says, do this,
right.
or they need to be surfaced as self-service resources. Like maybe there's
Yes.
a kiosk or an app, you scan a QR code and pull
Yeah.
populates your phone.
You have autonomy to do this. Yes.
Yeah, because something happened in the environment. I need to do a thing now. I wasn't told to do it. I almost cut my hand off. I need to go fill out a near miss. Or I'm
Right.
done with this batch. I need to watch a video to know how to do the next thing.
Right.
Or yeah, I need to call for a tow motor to have them bring me more parts.
Yeah.
So, all resources become workflows, and all workflows either become assignments are self-service resources. And once we realized that, we effectively, Emily, understood all of work. And so the platform just sort of fell into place. It's not a tool, it's a tool that makes tools. You can build anything you want to do anything you want. And it's because it lives by those principles.
Makes total sense. Yeah, to break it down in that way makes complete sense. And I think it's brilliant in the sense that you kept the concept simple,
Mhm.
but you created a very technically designed, complex piece of software to
Yeah.
support the simplicity of the design, which is tough to do,
Yeah. It
right?
was, it was, it was
It's tough to
hard. Like,
do.
and how do you make it easy to use?
Right,
How do you, because people do these, we're an enterprise level platform like a CRM or like an
right,
ERP, but you'll lose 2 years of your life and $500,000 doing an ERP implementation. So how do you make it so literally day one, people are gaining momentum, they're gaining impact from it? And that was a
right.
big challenge is to say, okay, there's a million things you can do. How do I make it so you don't have to program everything day one and you can just start with one thing? The thing
Yeah,
that I just got off the phone with a prospective client, and they just have people ask them all the time, like, if I wear this, will I get pointed? Or how many days off do I get a year? It's all policies and procedures manual things.
sure.
Literally, they're going to implement it just so in the break room people can have access to all these policies because they're losing 1,000 hours a month answering these questions. You know, Nobody has access to this information. So it could be something simple like that. Or it could
Yeah,
be used to automate every single task and every single thing in your facility, but you can start with just one thing. And
right.
that was the challenge is how do we take that and make it to where it's useful day one?
Yeah, that's very smart. And it's also, I mean, it speaks to, I think, something that is easy to fit into or speak to the culture of a company, right? If you can bring that in, I think that where this is exciting or something like this as a, if we're just looking at it as a software piece or something a company is implementing for their employees, um I think we as people sometimes have a lot of fear about new tech coming in, whether it's this or AI or, anytime a company brings in a new platform. I've been in rooms where everybody's like, "Oh God, here we go. New platform. I have to learn a
Yeah.
new thing," you know. But this platform is designed with empathy.
Yes.
And it's designed to be easy to use because you understand I'm not my client, but I kind of am because I designed it for myself as I would have been when I worked in that environment.
Yeah.
And I had to do these things and I was missing this component.
Yeah, just it starts with where's your pain, and
Right.
let me go solve it. Like,
Let me help you through
not
this.
let me give you a new set
Yeah.
of homework assignments to go do, and eventually we might solve your pain. No, tell me
Right.
about your pain. You can't get information from this person to that person,
Right.
and really, you hit something there a second ago. Not to digress too much from Undesk, but I'll talk about AI here a little bit. The same thing happens with AI, so you get this reluctance because everyone's like, oh, well, I don't want that because that'll replace my job. No,
Yeah.
generally not. Generally, it's going to make the place more efficient
Yeah.
to the point that it can continue to have margins good enough to survive so you keep your job because AI can look through a lens on a camera and see a defect on this part that you'll not see, so it'll let you know, hey, something's wrong. So you can hit a button, stop the line, take this to a person, measure it with a micrometer or whatever, and then go, okay, we need to make an adjustment. So it can save you from
Right.
spitting out 1,000 bad parts because it sees it earlier. That's one example. I mean, AI can be used for a lot of things. And so
Sure.
you're right, though, there is this reluctance for that. And really all you got to do in that change management, and this we see this at Undesk, I see this with AI integration. You just got to explain to everybody that's involved, here's why this is good for you.
Right.
Because all they're worried about is this is going to cost me a bunch of time or it's going to steal my job one day. Like that's it.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I think it again comes down to the approachability of it.
Mhm.
And when we as practitioners of HR or whatever the case may be, leadership in our roles, when we bring new adoption into the workplace, no matter what it is, I'm of the belief that no matter what it is, our employees or our the people that we interact with are likely going to um need to buy into it in some fashion.
You got to, otherwise
Right.
you'll never get, and it's got to be
Right.
bought in from the top all the way to the bottom.
Right. But my point is, I guess, that there needs to be a low lift way. This is where I've found success with my teams is they're introducing things like AI that may cause some generalized anxiety. Um, Introducing it in low lift ways generally tends to be the best way because
Quick wins.
people will understand then, okay, wait a minute, this isn't as scary as I thought. This isn't something that's in to take my job. It's something that I
Right.
have to pilot. It's not going to do this on its own. Even agents, even if I build an agent for something, I still have to monitor what it's doing. I can't just let it take my hands completely off the wheel and say, go with God, you know? So I still have to monitor what it's doing. But this is the same thing. The approachability is, I guess what I'm saying is like when you design that way,
Yeah.
it's ingenious because you automatically get a buy-in that way. It's transparency and it's practical. And everybody can celebrate wins surrounding that.
Very
It's,
quickly. That's key. Like
yeah, very quickly.
if it takes too long to win, I got off a call with a client a while ago, and there's a post-it note sitting there on my desk, and there were four really great things, and then the guy spoke directly to my heart, and he goes, "We're going to start with this last one I talked about because that'll be the quickest win. The most people are going to see how we just transformed this facility." And he said, "Jeremy, after that, whatever you want will fall into place because everyone will just be so accepting, but that's
Yeah,
our quick win." And I loved it that he understood that.
yeah,
He's been a COO his entire life, and he gets that we need a quick win. We need instantaneous buy-in. Everybody needs to be on board with this. And he was smart enough to say, that's the one right there. You're
yeah.
not here every day. I am. You do that first. Everybody will love this. You'll get buy-in.
Right. Well, and then from that point on, the buy-in becomes easier and easier and easier and easier as you go along because you're starting to engage in that, build that trust. And I think
Absolutely.
that's what's lacking in a lot of these conversations I'm having with change management and leadership is foundationally there's a lack of trust because of lack of transparency and lack of understanding. And then we get these tools that come in and performance reviews are based around them. People are expected to learn these tools with very little resources. Questions are not being answered. And again, I don't believe anybody's an expert in AI because it's too new.
Well, I
But
know that guy that just got $200 million to leave Apple
you
and go.
believe that?
I hope he's an expert because he just
I
got
hope so.
$200
I
million
hope
dollars.
Let's hope so. But yeah, I mean, hopefully he's better than we are, right?
Right.
The point is like I don't think there's anybody that's like in this space amongst our peers as early adopters that we can really say is like there's just some of us that are better at it than others. And so I believe that there's a lot of questions that don't get answered because we just don't know. And it's okay to admit that. But I think that we have to be transparent with our employees about this type of thing, especially surrounding AI, because we've just put so much hype out there. But again, I said this to someone earlier. I was like, well, we've had the internet and we've had email and we've had Zoom and we've had
Everyone
before
made
Zoom,
it.
we had what was the other one that we had before Zoom? It was uh what was the digital one that we had before Zoom?
Right.
Skype, yeah. We had Skype. I mean, we had all these mechanisms before that were disruptive in tech that everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, email. Oh my gosh, the internet."
Yeah, email's going to kill the U.S. Postal Service. They'll never do it
Yeah.
again. And
I
now
mean,
all of a
my
sudden,
aunt was in
we're
the
doing more
postal service for 45 years. Like, sure,
they
she didn't
just,
lose her job.
no, there's FedEx, UPS, and all sorts of people now.
Right.
You get
So,
it?
I mean, we didn't, so I believe that if we are resistant to it, then we might have an issue. I believe that we have to be careful how we use it, absolutely, because it's an incredibly powerful tool. Um, But I believe that we have to have the tough conversations, and it's probably, well, not probably, it is going to be guided by HR. They're going to be guiding this conversation whether they like it or not.
Yeah, because it's a human issue, you know.
Right. Right.
And
And the
it's,
psychological safety is a massive part of this.
well, I think a lot of the first steps of AI that you're seeing in most environments, it's in HR. I would argue in some advanced manufacturing, they've been using AI to like watch things and do quality work for
For
quite some
years.
time, right?
Yeah.
That's probably the very first real world adoption of AI is being able to analyze things that are moving at lightning speed that a human can't. But the next implementation really has been in AR. And you see like our
Right.
software is already implemented AI. We have language translation AI because one of the challenges, especially in manufacturing, I got plants that have like 15 different languages in there. And
Right.
you know, you gotta be able to allow people access to the whatever it is and whatever language they speak, the training or the documents or the policies or whatever. And
Right.
so we're seeing that. We're seeing I was at the big Sherm National Show
Right.
and I saw some AI for recruiting, which is fantastic because sifting through 6,000 people's profiles to figure out who's qualified for your job is just not a human thing, right? You're just going to keep making
Well,
bad hiring decisions if you got to rely on one person to sift through 10,000 resumes. And AI can at least help narrow that down in some way, right?
well, I mean,
I would hope.
yes.
I would
Yes.
hope.
I mean, we could talk about that because I mean, I that's a whole broader conversation because I believe, and we can talk about this in another segment if we wanted, but I believe, coming from the applicant pro world and ATS world and the recruiting side of things, so talking to business owners from small to medium-sized businesses and, all this and doing recruitment process outsourcing, which is like full package working with business owners on strategy for recruiting. Um, we, I believe that we just hire wrong in the first place.
Oh yeah, I'll
Yeah,
get
so, I mean, I don't think that you should be getting to a point where you've got 6,000 resumes. I think you've got a problem with the way you're recruiting if you get to that point. But that's a whole separate conversation. If you got 6,000, yeah, you're gonna probably need something to weed through those, but what you do with that data, those applicants, shouldn't be discarded anyway, and there's a whole way to nurture that talent pool.
you're an expert there, so I traded into
Yeah.
a
I mean,
team.
again, I could go into that all day. But one thing I did want to ask you about, Jeremy, that I think is an interesting, maybe could be a hurdle, could be something. I mean, I know the platform that you've come up with is way easy to, user friendly experience.
Couple
I
hours
believe,
we were doing it. Yeah.
yeah, I believe AI is user friendly if you kind of get used to it, you approach it in um, a fairly low lift way. Use it to help you tell your kids a bedtime story or something like that that you can, or pick 10 ingredients out of your fridge and have it, give you a recipe or something like that. Give it something low lift. One of the things that occurs is we have the biggest generational gap I've ever seen in the workforce. Now, you and I coming from a manufacturing background, we're kind of used to that. That's not an unheard of for us. I worked along people that were 20, 30 years older than me all the time. Um, but we're seeing now an older retirement age, people coming out of retirement, which I believe AI is great for them because it allows them to kind of self-start. If they learn how to use it, they can do like stuff with it, business-wise or whatever. How do you find the reception of technology in your experience with this generational gap? Because obviously 25 to 35 to 45-ish age range is going to approach technology much differently than like 45 to 75.
Yeah, so this is a conversation I've been having for like the last 20 years, probably. It's one I'm pretty used to. And the divide you're talking about are digital natives versus non-digital natives, right?
Right.
I'm born
Right.
in 1981, so my childhood there were no electronics.
Right.
We rode our bikes 3 counties over, and was trespassing in some guy's field, fishing in his pond, and we didn't have an iPhone, we didn't have we didn't have an Xbox, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have none of those things. But
Right.
But then as a late teenager, early adult, it was available and our brains caught onto it really quickly. And so it's a very special section I'm from. So I'm literally in the middle here. So
Right.
everyone younger than me was born with an iPhone.
Right.
Intuitively, I watch these kids, they'll walk up to a TV at a store and they'll touch it because they
Oh
just
yeah, they
think
think it's a touch screen.
all screens are touch screens.
Yeah,
It's fascinating to
it's
them.
wild.
It's a screen you can't touch, right? And
Yeah.
then everybody older than me, they feel I don't know, uneasy is probably a decent word to use. And so part of what we had to do was make it so that it didn't require a learning curve. So if you give somebody a Mac or a Windows machine and they always use the other one, even though they're really similar, they're not. And so it's an awkward experience, like when you see a Windows person in a Mac or a Mac person in Windows. But what everybody does understand is they understand very simple, easy buttons. And so we had to design an interface for the end user. So it's like, here are 10 buttons. They're clearly labeled. You can't mess this up. One of them says employee benefits. One of
Right.
them says time off request. Like these are simple tasks. You don't have system trays. We don't have start buttons to go dig through menus. No, it's really basic. Here's a button, click the button, it starts the thing. And so that's how we overcame that gap for that older generation. Is it doesn't require any training. Like the buttons
Right.
clearly labeled. There's no interface things. And anybody that was born a digital native, they quickly find all the advanced settings that you can dig around into. And
Oh, sure.
on they see an extra button and their curiosity kills them. They hit the button. So there's things there for them as well. So if they want to adjust advanced settings, if there's 10 things in a workflow and they want to see all 10 of them lined up so they know where they're at, there's a button to open that tray, right? And
Right.
you can explore that. So we made it so that the simplest of user could start with no training, but the most advanced user can find all those little breadcrumbs, all those little icons that what's that do? And customize it and make it their own.
That's awesome. Love it. It's so good. I wish they had something like this when I was in the field. I would have made life so much easier for those of us who were out there like, 6 in the morning at the factories trying to figure out what was going on.
I was at a show the other day, I think it was last week in Owensboro, Kentucky at a health and safety expo, Kentucky Governor's Health and Safety Expo. And they had this training that goes on for 2 days, right? And then the
Yeah,
last day they come out to the expo floor and we've all got solutions. And usually at these health and safety expos, it's me and then everybody that makes work boots and gloves. That's
right,
carabiners and safety harnesses and stuff like that. And but I'm usually one of the only technology people there. Our company is anyway. And
right.
this girl, I think her name was Chelsea. I've got a meeting with her tomorrow. She had been upstairs for 2 days going, you know what we really need? And she's describing this thing. And she walks right up to our booth and she goes, oh my God, I've been talking about this for 2 straight days that somebody needs to make this. And what was funny, Emily, is for the next 5 hours of my life, everybody that walked up to me goes, oh my God, Chelsea was saying she needed, like they all knew Chelsea. She had complained for 2 straight days about exactly what she needed, and we had it. So I know exactly what you're saying. Like it's an idea whose time has come. Very simply.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, it really has. It's been needed for a long time. It's great that it's been so well received by HR. I'm glad to know it's well received by HR people. Because sometimes there's challenges in that. And with new technology with HR like we found, but it's so perfectly designed to be approachable that it's tough to say no to something like that because the value is so there that it's going to enhance job security. Obviously, with retention, this is a tool that would enhance that because it's low lift.
Well,
That
one of
to me
the
is the
reasons I hear
biggest thing.
people, one of the reasons, sorry to interrupt, but one of the reasons I hear people that they leave their job is like, I didn't feel like I had the resources to be able to do my job. Like I felt like I was just in a little black box. And you don't get that now when there's digital signage communicating what's going on. There's kiosks to deliver that.
Right.
Each system has its own thing. Hey, here's how to do your job. Here's how to change the plate. Here's, you don't feel like you're lost anymore and,
Right.
and disconnected.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that HR faces, is communication of benefits and communication of
Policy.
resources. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you on probably, well, 3 fingers how many companies I've worked for in 40 years that have had, like, really great communication with benefits.
Is it
It
zero?
Yeah, 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 it's a 0 because it is, I mean, it's so tough, and I think it's because employee employees come and go, it's tough. HR, I believe, has one of the hardest jobs, if not the hardest job in a company, because they are the cultural emergency room.
Well, on top of that, to add to the the cultural emergency room, in manufacturing, you're seeing, and people don't like when I say this number, but it's a reality. It's not true for everyone, but it's an average. That's how averages work. About 40% annual turnover rate.
Mhm.
So that means you got 1,000 people, 400 of them are going to be gone before the year's up, and
Right,
you're going to have to train 400 new people.
right.
And so that means there's 400 people at any given moment that are non-productive right now because they're in some stage of this onboarding training, trying to get to where they're a producible human. And so, not only is that a challenge of its own because you got to know all the workflows and all the systems and get a system down pat. You got to Henry Ford this thing, right? And
Yeah,
make
yeah,
a lot of it. But on top of that, like that's insanely added pressure now because that comes at a cost. And I've seen a lot
yeah.
of figures. I've heard that a turnover of a person can cost up to $60,000.
Oh,
That makes sense.
easily.
Have to offboard, some sue, some don't, but that's factored in. You got to onboard new people. You got to find the people first. Like
Oh,
recruiting
yeah,
is its own thing now. I remember when recruiting wasn't a thing. Like people just showed up and you had a million applicants. Now you're trying
right,
to find the right person. And it's a big business and it's a serious business because, like you said earlier, making wrong hires. Then you find them. Now you got to train them. And so you burning $60,000 a person, you got 400 people that are turning over in 1,000 person factory. If you're talking about $60,000 a person, which again is a high end, that's $24 million. That's crazy.
yeah. No, it's insane.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's insane. Well, last question. What are you most excited about in the next 5 years with technology in the workplace? What do you kind of foresee as the most exciting venture that's gonna be coming our way?
For us, I think for UnDesk, what's the most exciting thing we're going to do? Well, we solved communication, we solved automation, we solved engagement in a lot of ways. Right now, where a lot of the focus is on language barriers.
Yeah.
We live in a nation now where, like I said earlier, I was in a facility the other day, 13 languages in it. And the number of problems that this creates and the friction that it generates and the lost productivity, the inefficiencies, I feel like for us, and we're already doing this work. We have 3 phases to our AI implementation for language. We're done with phase one. You can already go on our platform and hit this button, and everything that's like a platform button
Right,
converts to whatever language you want instantly.
right,
And phase two is like any form or document that you put in, you can put in the English version or whatever version. We can translate it. That's
convert
phase two
it.
we're working on. And I feel like, it's not the sexiest thing in the world.
Right.
There's much cooler, more fun things to talk about in the world of technology. But from a sheer, to me, it doesn't got to be sexy. It's got to be impactful. And for
Yeah,
me, like, I think the fact that we are such a mixed world now and we all live together now and we all speak these different languages, have different colors, different cultures, different everything, and the ability to empower a workplace to not be worried about
right.
their language and to tell the workers, oh, don't worry about it. We have it in your language here. Like, I feel like the harmony that brings and the efficiency that brings, that's exciting to me. Again, it's not sexy language translation,
No,
that wasn't on your bingo card of sexiest things in tech, right? But it is very impactful.
I would agree with you there. And I you say it's not the sexiest thing. I tend to disagree. I think language models are one of the most complex
Yeah.
things to get right because language is not always verbal.
Not only that, it's not mathematic. Like one language, the rule sets don't look any
Right. You have
same way.
semantics. You have, it is not always, I mean, I speak some Hebrew and it's, depending upon how you're speaking it, you have different conjugations of words that mean different things and, stuff like that. And so, I mean, you really have to be careful what you say
Mhm.
because there's some things in Hebrew you could say it one way and it means something very different.
Yeah.
And you're going to make someone either laugh or slap you across the face.
Yeah, and we
So,
we we
you
bump
know,
into that even at this point, to kind of make
yeah,
fun of ourselves. We were on a meeting the other day, and we had an AI translation of what the word checkout, or maybe it was
right.
pre-registration,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it had done an Italian thing, and then all of a sudden these guys were laughing, and we're like, "What are you laughing about?" And they're like, "Well, let me tell you what that button says." So they explained to us what it meant to them,
yeah,
which was not safe for work. And what AI had translated into, because it done a
right,
direct translation. So,
right,
it's not perfect. We're getting there. At this
right.
point, it's fun and comical sometimes. And I think
Sure.
people know that, hey, we did a translate on this and it went poorly. Uh,
Right.
so and
Yeah.
so they're pretty forgiving, but
Oh,
yeah,
for sure. It's
yeah,
great. Well, it's funny when it happens, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the thing. It's hard to get it right,
it's
you
super
know? But
super
I
hard.
mean,
Love it.
but
And I
it's
was
fun.
talking about this the other day, to someone else that we were doing an interview, and Tim Cook spoke the other day to his company about their AI, because everybody at Apple feels like they're not making any progress.
Right.
And because they're Apple and they're really far behind, they just lost their top engineer for 200 million bucks to
I
Facebook.
know.
And so he
Yeah.
comes out and he says something. And what was ironic is I had the same feeling. I just never had the right words to say it. And what he
Right.
said was, Apple's never been first in anything. They didn't make the first iPhone. They didn't make the first tablet, the first computer, the first MP3 player, but they make the best tablet and the best MP3 player and the best, and I don't necessarily know that I agree with that, but they make really good stuff.
Right.
So the way we look at it is, we don't have to be the first either. We have to be the people that see all of the noise of, this exciting AI or exciting new technology, quantum computing, whatever. But how does that actually practically apply in a way that's not a flash in the pan and feels buzzwordy and you get
Right.
all hyped about it, but that's lasting? And that's what we're looking at, is like, what are these innovations that are important now and are going to be important later? Like, I want to design the blue jeans of technology.
That's how I feel. Exactly the same way. And I mean, I worked in denim, so I mean,
So I brought that up. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm all about that. So I'm the same way. It might not be the sexiest tech on the planet, but it's gonna last and it's gonna be agile enough to be transformative
Yeah.
and
Like jeans,
evolutionary, right?
yeah,
It'll just
you can
evolve.
rip them and they're worth more money,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
It's pre-ripped.
exactly. Yeah, right. Well, Jeremy, it's been a pleasure as always talking to you. And thank you again for joining us. This has been great.
Okay, that was incredible. Jeremy just completely reframed how I think about work in AI, and I'm betting he did the same for you. So here's what's sticking with me. First, you cannot AI your way out of chaos. Makes sense, right? If your workflows aren't documented and digitized, AI might as well be magic. Step 1 is digitize. Step 2 is document. Then step 3 is figure out where AI actually helps. Second, Jeremy's framework about work being resources that become either assignments or self-service tools. That's genius. Forms, checklist, media, agreements, when you break it down, that's literally all work is. And third, quick wins matter. When Jeremy's client said, let's start with the thing that gets fastest buy-in because then everything else falls into place, that's pure gold for anyone trying to drive change. What's holding you back from thinking differently about the workers in your organization who aren't glued to computers all day? What if AI could actually empower them instead of replacing them? Huge thanks to Jeremy Jacobs for sharing his journey. Here's the challenge. AI is transforming work whether we're ready or not. But it's conversations like this that remind us it's not about technology replacing people. It's about empowering the 2.7 billion workers who've been overlooked way too long. If this sparks something for you, hit subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who needs to hear Jeremy's message. The future of work isn't just about desk jobs, it's about everyone. I'm Ryan Kohler, and I'll catch you next time on The Future of Work with AI.